Hello everyone, this is Piyush. Welcome back to my channel. In this video, let's look at how to file your federal taxes as an international student in the US for free. So without wasting any time, let's get into it. Hi everyone, this is Piyush. If you don't know me, I came in the US in the year 2021 and graduated with a degree in Purdue University and currently working full-time based in New York. I have started this channel 2 years back and most of my focus is on tax filing, especially for international students in the US. This is one of the topics which interests me personally, whether it's tax filing, personal finance, anything related to money. So this is how I got started in my YouTube, and I have been so blessed to receive so many positive comments on my YouTube channel and people reaching out to me personally, giving positive feedback, positive comments, asking me questions, and it feels so good to be able to help people in their tax filing. I know the tax filing topic is very complicated and it sometimes might get overwhelming. It was the same for me, but if you start understanding how the taxes actually work, it's not too hard, especially as an international student where most of the income that you have would only be W2 income, that is income either from your part-time, internships or full-time. Some of the people might have complicated income such as interest, dividend, income from rental property and whatnot, but as long as you just have W2 income, it's not too difficult, and I would highly recommend you to try filling out the taxes by yourself. I know some universities provide access to the tax filing software, such as Purdue University has Glacier tax software. I have already made a video on how to file your federal taxes. If you have Glacier tax software, you can check it out on my channel. Believe me, it's not too difficult to file your taxes by yourself as well. The main thing to note is that you should just know which forms to fill, because I know many people have made these mistakes because the US citizens have separate tax forms and international students or non-resident aliens have separate tax forms. So you want to ensure you fill the correct forms, because if you make any mistakes in the forms or the calculations, you have to make an amended return which costs you money as well as time. So try to get it done right and right at the first time. This video would specifically be helpful for students who had W2 income, who had interest income and dividend income. If your tax situation is more complicated than this, you can definitely consult your university or go to a paid agent. I'm not against going to a paid agent, like it's not about the money. I don't want to be frugal, but it's about being financially aware and knowing where your taxes are going. My suggestion is, even if you plan to go to any paid agent, first thing is make sure you go to the right agent, because I see many people using TurboTax or I think HR Block, but remember that these softwares, like most of the softwares, doesn't support international students. They are only for US citizens, so they won't ask you for your citizenship or your visa status, but if you file taxes with them, they will file the wrong tax forms and it will be a hassle for you. So even if you are going with any paid agent, make sure you are going to the correct one. Sprintax is one of the most reliable sources that you can go, which files taxes for non-resident aliens. Apart from that, if you're going with any other, make sure you check the credibility and make sure they are filing the right forms. Second thing is, even if your agent fills out all the forms, be financially aware and know which forms are filled, how the taxes are calculated, because it's a hard-earned money that you earn during the year, so you want to make sure where the taxes are going and how it is calculated. So basically you have to file two types of taxes. One is the federal tax, which you can consider as a central government, and other is the state tax where you earned your income. Suppose you earned your income in Indiana, you need to file a state tax with Indiana. There are 7 states which don't have any state taxes, but if you fall under any of the states apart from this, you have to fill federal taxes as well as state taxes. So make sure you file your taxes on time and correctly. The deadline for the tax filing is 15th April 2025. So we want to make sure we fill out everything and send out the documents before this date. So now that you know how the taxes work and what things you need to take care of, now I will start sharing my screen and show you how to fill your federal taxes in 2025. So let's get into it. The first step is to download all the required forms for your tax filing. So the main form for non-resident aliens is Form 1040 NR. The next form is Form 8843. The next form to download is Schedule OI. Another form that might be applicable to you is Schedule NEC for 1040 NR. This would only be applicable if you had capital gains, some royalty income, interest income, or dividend income. So these are the forms that you would need for your tax filing. So now let's move to our first form. So the main form which shows how much refund you might get or how much you owe to the government is the form 1040 NR, where NR stands for non-resident alien. So first step is to make sure you are filing for the correct year. So this is for the year 2024. Start by putting your first name and middle initial and put your last name. Put your social security number right here. Then put the home address. This should be the current address where you are staying at this moment. Then check the filing status if you are single, married, filing separately, or any of these options. For the digital assets, if this applies to you, click on yes, otherwise you can click on no. Dependents is only applicable if you had any dependents, otherwise you can leave this section blank. Line 1A asks total amount from form W2. So most of the students might have W2 income, which is employment income from full-time, part-time, or your internships. Some people might have multiple W2s. So if you add multiple W2s, make sure you add all the wages and then put the amount right here. If you just had a single W2, you can directly pull up the value from your W2 and put it right here. Read the other lines. I think most of it shouldn't be applicable for you, but it's a good practice to read all the lines to see if anything applies to you. If it doesn't, you can leave this portion blank. Then we come to the line K, which says total income exempt by treaty from Schedule OI. So India and US has a tax treaty, but it is not applied here. We will apply it later. So for now, just put 0.00 here. And the thing is, you don't have to round off the numbers in this form. In some of the state taxes, you need to round off the numbers, but in the federal taxes, you put the numbers as it is, whether it's in decimals or not. Line Z is just adding lines 1A through 1H, which is the same as this for me because I didn't have anything right here. So put that value in 1Z. If you had any interest or dividend income in the year 2024, don't worry, we have a separate form for that, so you have to leave this section blank. Then the line 8 is additional income from Schedule 1. So most of us won't have this Schedule 1, so you can just put it as 0.00. And the line 9 is simply the addition of lines 1Z, 2B, 3B, 4B, 5B, 7 and 8, which is like I didn't have anything apart from the W2 income, so it would be the same for me. So this is your total effectively connected income. Then it asks adjustment to income from Schedule 1. Again, we don't have any Schedule 1, so you can leave it as 0.00. And the line 11 is simply subtracting line 10 from line 9, which is like subtracting 0 from this. So basically it's the same for me. Then line 12 is about the itemized deductions or for certain residents of India standard deduction. So as I mentioned, India and US has a tax treaty where we can claim the standard deduction similar to the one provided to the US citizens, which is 14,600 for the year 2024. So you just put a text box here saying standard deduction US India income tax treaty and put the amount as 14,600.00. Make sure to put a text box and have the font in some other color, for example blue, because black might resemble this text and it might get confusing for the for whoever who is checking the tax forms. Then moving to the line 14, it's basically just adding lines 12 and 13C. So we don't have anything in 13C, which is why it would be 14,600. Just adding this and this. Line 15 is just subtracting line 14 from line 11, which is subtracting this value by your number on line 11. So for me, it comes out to be 5,400.55. If your taxable income, if this value for you is 0 or less, just enter 0. So what that basically means is that your taxable income for the year 2024 is 0. So you are not liable to pay any taxes. But if it's more, put that value right here and we will calculate the applicable taxes on that. Let's move to the second page. So the line 16 is the calculation of tax. So for this, you have to go to the tax table. You can find the tax table by searching on Google. So this is the instruction sheet for tax tables. Make sure it's for the year 2024. And for finding it, just scroll down. So what you have to do is basically see where your income falls. It should fall between this value and this value. So, and you have to see what's your filing status. So for me it's single, so I will just see this column. If you are married filing jointly or married filing separately, these are the applicable columns. But if you are single, just focus on this column. So see where your income falls. For me, my taxable income is 5400.55. So I will just scroll to see where it falls. So the 5400.55 falls between this value and this value. So my taxable income is 543. If you can see, this column was for single tax filer. So my tax is 543. And coming back to our form 1040 and our on line 16, I will put the value that I just got from the tax table, which is 543. Make sure you see it correctly, see where your income falls, and write the appropriate value in line 16. We don't have anything for schedule 2, so we can leave this blank. 18th line is just the addition of line 16 and 17, which should be the same as this, as we don't have anything here. See if anything applies for you, but most probably we shouldn't have this, so you can leave these lines blank. Moving to line 22, it's just subtracting line 21 from line 18. So we don't have anything here, so again the value should be same as this. Next line is line 23A, which says tax on income not effectively connected with a US trade or business. So if you had any interest income or dividend income in 2024, you have to file a separate schedule, which is schedule NEC for form 1040NR. If you didn't have any interest or dividend income, you can skip this portion. But if you had these types of income, make sure to file the schedule NEC. So this is what the schedule NEC for form 1040NR looks like. Again, make sure that it is for 1040NR and make sure it's for the correct tax filing year. Start by putting your name as per the form 1040NR, which is your first name and initial and your last name. Then put your social security number right here. Then we will start by the first line, which is dividends. So 1A says dividends paid by US corporations, and we have separate columns based on percentages. So it's 10%, 15%, or 30%. But most of the FDAP income, that is not effectively connected income, is taxed at a flat rate of 30% or lower treaty if your country has some treaty with the US. But for Indian students specifically, I know that we are taxed at 30%. So you can just leave the first and second column as 00, and whatever dividends that you got paid in 2024 by US corporations, put that amount right here. You can get this amount, you can find this amount on your form 1099 DIV, which is provided by your broker. So see what was the amount in your form if you had any dividend income. In others, you can just write 0 and 0 and put the value as 00 respectively. Into the second line, which is interest. So if you had any interest income from your banks or any financial institution, you have to go to the line C, which is others, because mortgage and foreign corporations doesn't apply. So we'll move to line C, and again it is taxed at a flat rate of 30%. So you will just put 0 and 0 in the first two columns and put the value that you get in 1099 INT. Again, this is a tax form that is provided by the bank or the financial institution from where you got your interest. So you can pull up that value and put it right here. In the others, you can again put it as 0 and 0. See which of these lines apply to you. If anything applies to you and you have a tax form, make sure you put the value here. Otherwise, let's move to the line 9, which says capital gains from line 18 below. So if you sold any stocks during the year 2024 and you had gains on that, you have to report it to the IRS, which is from this table. I didn't sell any stocks in the year 2024, so it's 0 for me. If you had an income, make sure you fill it here and then put it appropriately on line 18 in the 30% column. The line 11 is for gambling. If you had any winnings from lottery or gambling, you put the amount in 30% right here. Otherwise, you can leave this blank. Line 12 is others. If you had any other income that applies here, you can put it here, or move to the line 13, which is just addition of lines 1A through 12. So we don't have anything in these columns. For the 30%, add all the columns that you have here. For me, it is 163.16. So I will enter that value and put everything as 0 because it doesn't apply here. We are taxed at a flat rate of 30%. So only this column should be applicable. Line 14 simply says multiply line 13 by the tax rate at the top of each column. So for this, we have a tax rate of 30%. So I will multiply 163.16 by 0.3. which gives me a value of 48.95. Then we have to add the values in all the columns on line 14. So we don't have anything here. So it's just this value. We'll put the same value in the line 15. This is the value that you have to carry over to the form 1040 NR. So let's go back to our form. So coming to our line 23A, this is how I got the value as 48.95 from the schedule NEC. Again, if you didn't have any interest or dividend income, you can leave this blank. But if you had these types of income, make sure you fill this out after filling the schedule NEC. See if any of these lines apply to you, otherwise leave this blank. Line 24 is just the addition of lines 22 and 23D. This is your total tax. So just add these two values, which gives me 591.95. The next section is for the payment. So 25A is federal income tax withheld from forms W2. So pull out your form W2 and you will see how much federal tax was withheld. Exactly enter the amount as it is. If you had multiple W2s, make sure you add all the federal tax withheld from your pay from all the W2s. But if you had a single W2, you can directly get that value and put it in the box 25A. If you had any forms 1099, for example 1099 DIV, 1099 INT, and any federal tax was withheld from your form 1099, put it right here. But for me, I didn't have any federal tax withheld from those forms, so I enter it as 0. If you had any federal tax withheld from other forms apart from W2 and 1099, you can put it here. But for most of the students, it shouldn't be applicable, so you can leave this blank. And come to line D, which says add lines 25A through 25C, which is just addition of all these values. So which is the same as this in my case. We don't mostly get these forms, and 1042S, some people might get it. If any tax was withheld, you can enter the value or leave it as blank. For line 26, it says 2024 estimated tax payments and amount applied from 2023 return from the last year. For most of the students, it shouldn't be applicable because we usually claim all the refund directly into our bank account. So you can put it as 0 in that case. Then moving to line 31, it is from Schedule 3. So it shouldn't be applicable for most of the cases. Again, I'm telling for most of the cases because I don't know, the tax situation might be different for you. But if you have simple types of income such as W2 1099, then it's applicable for you. But if your tax situation is more complicated, it's a good idea to see if any of the schedules apply to you, whether it's schedule 1, 2, 3, and enter it appropriately. But in most of the cases, it shouldn't be applicable, so you can leave it as 0. 32 is just adding the lines 28, 29, and 31, which is like nothing for me, so I will just enter 0. And line 33 is adding the lines 25D, 25E, F, G, 26, and 32. So which is adding all the values from here up to here, which gives me a value of 3500.79, which is the same as this because I didn't have any values right here. Next section is for the refund. So if your line 33 is more than line 24, you have to subtract line 24 from line 33. For me, the value on line 33 is more than line 24, so I will subtract 591.95 from 3500.79, which gives me a value of 2908.84. If the value in your line 33 is less than the value on line 24, that means that you owe money to the government and you have to enter that value in the amount you owe section. But if you are eligible for the refund, if your line 33 is more than line 24, you will enter the amount right here. This basically means that this is the amount that you overpaid and that will be refunded back to your bank account by the IRS. Line 35 says amount of line 34 you want refunded to you. So obviously we want all the amount from here refunded back to our bank account. So you enter the same value as the line 34. Next is for direct deposit. Like I would definitely prefer this because then the money is directly credited to your bank account instead of getting a check. Like there's a possibility of misplacing the check, so it's better to get a direct deposit. In that case, just enter your routing number and account number and select the type of account, whether it's checking or savings. Please make sure that you enter the bank account details correctly because this is where you will be getting the refund. If you mess up in your bank account number, then there's a chance that you will lose your refund. So make sure to double check it and make sure you are putting the right bank account number. You can leave this section blank because we are claiming all the refunds. And if you're owing any money to the government, then only you fill these lines. Otherwise, you can just skip this. This is for third party designee, but if you are filing the forms by yourself, you can leave this section blank. In your occupation, you can enter student. So if you are on your F-1 visa, you are still considered a student. I already graduated from a university and working full time, but as I'm on my F-1 visa, I will enter my occupation as student. So that's it for the form 1040 NR. Next form is Schedule OI. Make sure it's for the form 1040 NR and for the year 2024. We'll start by putting the name similar to the one that we put in form 1040 NR and then put your social security number right here. The first question is of what country were you a citizen or national during the tax year? So I was a citizen of India. We'll put India right here. In what country did you claim residence for tax purposes? Again, it will be India. Next question is, have you ever applied to be a green card holder of the United States? Were you a US citizen or were you a green card holder? So select the answer as per your case. Then moving to the line E, if you had visa on the last day of the tax year, enter your visa type. So I was on my F1 visa, so I will just enter F1 student right here. Have you ever changed your visa type or US immigration status? So I entered US as a F1 student and still I'm a F1 student, so I will enter no. Next is listing all the dates that you entered and left the US during 2024. So if you say, for example, if you left the US in December 23, came back in Feb 25, you don't enter those dates, only enter the dates for 2024. So I entered the US on 4th Feb 2024. I left the US for India trip on 26th November 2024. So I will enter that values right here. You can leave this section blank. Next is give the number of days that you were present in the US during each of the financial year mentioned here, 2022, 23 and 24. So calculate the days that you were present accordingly. If you went to a India trip for 1 or 2 months, exclude that, but it's only for the days that you were present in the US. This includes vacation, non-work days or even partial days. So be as accurate as possible. See your I-94 and see your date of entry and date of exit and calculate the days accordingly. Next question is, did you file a US income tax return for any prior year? If this is your first time, you can click no, but I had filed a income tax last year, so I will click on yes. And if you selected yes, give the latest year and form number you filed. So the last tax form that I filed was for the financial year 2023 and the form was 1040 NR, so I will put it right here. Next is, are you filing a return for a trust? So it should most probably be no. Next question is, are you filing a return for a trust? In most of the cases, it should be no, so click on the appropriate box. Moving to line K, did you receive total compensation of 250K or more during the tax year? So if it applies to you, click on yes, but my income was definitely less than this, so I will click on no. So L1 lists the tax treaty that you might have claimed, but again, like we have a India US tax treaty, but that is not applicable here. So you can just put it as 0.00. For other countries, if your country has some tax treaty and it applies here, you have to enter right here. But for India and US, you don't mention the tax treaty in here because it's just claiming the standard deduction which we show on the form 1040 NR. So you can enter 0.00 here. Lines 2 and 3 doesn't apply to us, so you can just leave this section blank. For the line M, you can check both of these options, but none of these apply for me and none of these should apply in most of the cases. But again, it's a good idea to read it, and then if it applies, you can check it. Otherwise, you can just leave it as it is. That's it for the schedule OI. Let's move to our next form. Next and the last form is form 8843. This is required to be filled by all the international students in the US to be compliant with your US visa. Again, make sure that this is for the year 2024. Start by putting your first name and initial and your last name here. Then put your social security number here. If you are filing this form 8843 with your form 1040 NR, then you can leave this section blank. You have to fill the address only if you are filing this form by itself and not with your US tax return. So for people who didn't have any income during the tax year 2024, they still have to fill the form 8843. For them, they can enter the address. But if you have the form 1040 NR and you are filing it with the US government, so you can leave this section blank. Coming to the part one, the first line is type of US visa and date you entered the United States. So I'm currently on my F1 visa and first entered the US on 28 December 2021. So I enter it right here. Next is current non-immigrant status. So I came as a F1 student and still a F1 student. So I will enter my current immigration status as F1 student. Second question is again of what country were you a citizen during the tax year? It's India for me. And what country issued your passport? Again, it's India for me. Enter your passport number here. And as you remember from Schedule OI, we put the total number of days we were present in the US. So enter the same values according to the tax years mentioned here. Next is enter the number of days in 2024 that you can exclude for substantial presence test. So as a student on F-1 visa, I think the substantial presence test doesn't start up till 5 year or so. So you can claim all the days in the current tax year, which is like 297 in my case. You can leave the part 2 as blank because this is just for teachers and trainees. Moving to the part 3, which is for students. So the first question here is enter name, address, and phone number of the academic institution you attended during 2024. So you just enter your university or school name, enter the address, and enter the phone number in the second line. Next is enter the name, address, and phone number of the director of the academic or specialized program you participated in 2024. You can get this from your I-20 or consult your university on what should you put in this section. Next is enter the type of US visa you held during each of these years. So I came in 2021, so I will enter my US visa type for all the years post that. So it's F1 for me in 2021, in 2022, and 2023. Next is were you exempt as a teacher, trainee, or student for any part of more than 5 calendar years. In most of the cases, it should be no, so you can select the appropriate option. Next question is during 2024, did you apply for lawful permanent resident status? So if you applied for it, click on yes, otherwise click on no. Moving to the page 2 of this form. So this is just for professional athletes and this is for individuals with a medical condition. You can just leave this section blank, and that's it for your form 8843. So as you saw, the federal tax filing as an international student is not too difficult, especially if you only had income such as part-time income, internship income, full-time income, or income from interest or dividend. If you had any other income from that, then you have to make sure you file all the required forms or consult a tax professional. But if you only had these simple types of incomes, it's not too difficult for you. But remember that your responsibility is not over just by filling out these forms. It's your duty to double check the calculations, because if you make any mistakes, then as I mentioned, you need to file another return which costs you money as well as time. So double check or even triple check your calculations, the additions and subtractions, or if you put the number in the wrong line, make sure to correct it before sending the documents. Second is after you are done with reviewing the calculations, you have to print out these forms, sign and put the date wherever required, because if you don't sign it, your form won't be considered complete. And once you have signed and dated all your tax forms, next thing is taking this set of documents and sending to the IRS on their required address. Remember that you can't e-file your taxes if you are filing the taxes by yourself. If you use the Sprint Tax software, they have e-filing software which is approved by IRS, but apart from that, I don't know if any software providers provide the ability to e-file your federal taxes. So if you're filing yourself, make sure you have to send the physical documents to the IRS on the required address and before the deadline. Again, the deadline for tax filing is 15th April 2025. So make sure you start filing your taxes, figuring out all the incomes you had, getting the right forms and filling it correctly. Comment down in the comment section if you have any questions for me. I would be more than happy to help you all. Like and subscribe my channel if you find my content useful. Share this video with your friends so that they are aware about the tax filing and file it before the deadline and file it correctly. Thank you again for watching this video. Until next time.